All right, we'll need a towel as well. So, a couple things I have noticed: it takes longer to get down here every day. Man, traffic is back for sure. Um, I don't know what the other thing is, but I know it takes longer to get down here every day. So, um, let's work on four things today. So, here's kind of maybe you guys are in the same boat, but I thought this would be a good opportunity. We're heading into the weekend. We just did 4 days of really high intensity work between chaos and our strength cycles or our tempo cycles. We get to Friday and you're just like, wow, holy shit. And today's a really good day to just do some mobility, some work on. So the things that I want to focus on, the four things were hips, calf, Achilles, gastroc, um, shoulders specifically. So those three components, and then also, again, tying together just at least some additional thoracic and like chest, pec. I just have had some conversations this week, and with the body weight exercises, most everything is put, at least as it relates to upper body, there's just a lot of energy and intensity put on the pushing process or anything in a push-up position. So in the grand scheme of things, right, we probably have been doing more push-up plank work than we generally do if we were in the gym. Now, we tried to combat that using the towel and doing some shoulder mobility, but it's just not enough. And also from an intensity standpoint, most of the stuff that we do with towel and at least as it relates to shoulder mobility is a lower intensity. So we probably have a tendency to try to want to make it a little bit harder, just because we know that we only got you for a short period of time. And so in that regard, I think we may have done just a little bit too much pushing over the past couple weeks, but that's okay. Like I said, let's take today and kind of recoup and think about the weekend, taking some time off this weekend from my perspective. And I'm speaking psychologically and physiologically for myself as well. We have been doing all of these workouts throughout this whole process. We are starting to grind down, so we got to understand that we will get into the overtraining spot as well. And, shoulders, neck. I mean, every time I go left to right, my neck, it just crunch, 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 crunch. So let's do two things. Let's start with the shoulder mobility, and then we'll go to hips. So we'll kind of go upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body. On the first round, what I'm going to have you do is take a knee, and we'll start with our arm circles, and then we're going to move into some left and right movement as well. So the traditional arm circles here, right, guys? We are elbows together, wrists together, and we want to scoop up and over your head, and then bring it right back down and through. So what I want you to think about and focus on here today is slowing it down, right? So we're not in a rush to get this stuff done right now. We got about 10 minutes of work that I want to get through, maybe 12. And so take your time. Keep the elbows and wrists together as long as you can. From the kneeling position, again, I'm trying to stay upright, right? I don't want to reach, I don't want to lean forward, and I don't want to arch my back to get this done. So keep your hips locked in and stay neutral with your spine. So once you get to 10, let's go the opposite direction. So we're going to go back behind your head and drive it down. And we'll just do 5 this way. So go back behind your head and drive your elbows down. And again, these are really, really good general mobility exercises to kind of get everything loosened up and moving. So let's go back. Let's switch knees. So I'm going to go with left knee. It's generally not comfortable being on my knee. So if you got a towel or a pad, put the towel down. You can put your knee down. And so we're going to go elbows up and through. And we'll keep the same scheme here, guys. Let's go for a set of 10. Where we are locked in close. Keep them together as long as you can. Got it. And then once you get to 10, go ahead and switch directions. And and drive it down and through. And we'll keep that same 5, right? So my hands are behind my head. I'm driving the elbows down, and Rudy got out of the front. That's not a surprise the way today's going. All right, so 1. Step number 2, let's go across your body, and then we're going to stretch out the tricep. So we're going to put your left hand right underneath your elbow, stretch, and then left hand on the elbow and stretch. So I'm pulling my elbow towards my ear and then relax. So you're going to reach across your body and stretch. So we're keeping everything in this line. And then we're going to go behind and try and scratch your back and stretch. So you can switch sides if you want to. We're going to end up doing 3 each side. Open it up, reach across. Keep doing that. I got to put Rudy back in his in front office. Come on, Rudy. Good. So on the next round, we're going to go to some hips, and we're going to do, you will need something. I like to use something to counterbalance. So you could use anything that's not going to move. I don't know what you have in front of you. I'm just trying to imagine where you guys might be doing this workout. You could easily, if you have a doorway, right? You could use a doorway like this, and I'm sitting back and through in the door. So all we're trying to do, lost you on the Facebook side here. So all we're trying to do is we want to be able to counterbalance. So from this perspective, it's not a normal squat where I'm just trying to get the parallel and then up and through. I actually want to sit as deep as I can and relax at the bottom and put as much space into my lumbar spine as possible. So I'm trying to decompress lumbar, and I'm trying to mobilize the hips. And I'm still gonna stand up and through, and then come back to the top. All right, so on this exercise, what I do not wanna do is I don't wanna sit straight down like a catcher's stance, right? So I get up on my toes. I've gotta be able to sit back, stay on the heels, and then round at the bottom. Again, this is not a position that I would teach with weight on your frame, but it is a great position to work on some mobility and work on decompression because we're not putting any downward pressure on your spine while we're doing it. So it's a great exercise. The other piece is that I'll change the width of my feet. So if I go a little wider, I'll get a little bit more hip, inner thigh, hip stretch mobility, and then I can drive up and through. So if we go through that range, let's do just a set of 10, and then we'll move into the next hip mobility standing here. And again, I just have something, I'm holding on to obviously the squat rack bar. You can use the doorway at your house where you can decompress. So I got one hand on one bar, one hand on the other, so that's where your doors are, or the opening of your door is, and then stretch up and through. Got it. So on the next, let's do single-sided exercise. So it takes a little bit of time to get through, but I'm going to stabilize at the bar, and I'm going to drive the hip. So this one's a little tricky in that it's really easy to get wonky on it, right? So the premise here is that I'm going to externally rotate and bring the hip around through a full circle, and then, bring the knee back up to the start position. So start position is knee hip high. I'm going to externally rotate in that plane and then bring the knee up and through, right? So if you watch my knee as I get, that's as wide as I can go. My knee is still, or my thigh is still pretty parallel to the floor. And then I want to externally rotate, turn it in, and then up and through. The tendency here is that you start going left and right. So don't use this as an assist. Use it as a reference point, because what you don't want to do is start doing the whole, I'm going to move my trunk and torso to get through a range of motion. Use your musculature, use your muscles, use your core, use your trunk to stabilize everything. So you're going to lift, externally rotate, 1. Externally rotate, 2. So we're going to go through this range of motion for 5. And then we're going to go backwards. This is tricky as well. And you're going to scoop back to the start line. Scoop back to the start line. And notice again, my shoulders are staying over my hips. I really feel my left leg working, my stationary leg on the floor. I can really feel that glute stabilizing. So you should start to feel those two things tie together. So let's do the other side. Externally rotate, a couple pops in there, another couple pops in there. Again, these are great exercises. We often overlook them. I totally get it. We want to hit it and get out. I understand and get to our cardio. But today, I thought we would just take a couple minutes. Good. The hip is starting to mobilize. It feels better. The crunchiness is gone. Just a few reps is all it takes, but it's that big range of motion that helps to kind of loosen things up and get the fluidity back into your hips so it gets some soreness out. And generally, it'll stimulate the joints themselves to be mobile, to be loose, right? So the little crunchies actually stimulate the joint. It'll release synovial fluid, and that's the fluid. That's like your 10W40, right? So you turn your car on, and the oil warms up, and it gets through your engine system. It's kind of the same concept where you start moving a little bit slowly and in control. You get some crunchies, that synovial fluid releases, and then all of a sudden you start to lubricate the joints and you start to warm up and go through normal ranges of motion. All right, so we need a towel. And this by far is one of my favorites. We're just gonna do the around the world, so it's 2 different exercises here as well. So I like to wrap. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't have to be a big bath towel. I'm just more using it for reference point. You can just ball it up if you want to. But we're gonna do the around the worlds. I like doing these standing and sitting, and I'm going to show you both. So from that perspective, on the stand, I want to think I'm going to go to my left side first. I'm going to go to my left, and my elbow is pointing straight to the ceiling. Let me see if I can scoot up here. I'll get a little closer. So my elbow is pointing straight to the ceiling, and then my left elbow points straight to the ceiling, and I'm back around and down. Got it? So I'm going to go the opposite direction. Left elbow up, right elbow up, back around and down. So this is kind of the equivalent of the hip exercise we just did. So we're trying to maintain a good, stable trunk. You know, again, I'm not going with the flow here. I'm trying to fight and maintain that upright stability. The other piece, guys, is that the towel is staying pretty close to my head. I almost feel like I'm pulling my head through my arms, right? But I'm not moving my head forward, keeping it neutral. So don't stick your chin out, right? As soon as I stick my chin out, my core starts to disengage as well. So keep a good neutral spine, keep a good neutral chin, keep everything. Again, this is a game of alignment, so you have to keep things aligned because that's telling you that the little tiny muscle stabilizers are sticking with you. And they're helping out, and that's exactly what we want to have happen here. Got it. And then the other thing that I commonly see, guys, is just the short range of motion, right? So the towel stays above my head. Keep that towel. I can get it to the point where it's tapping my shoulders the whole time, and then the slower the better. Got it. So that's one. The other piece you can do sitting down. So when you're sitting down, and I know you can't see my legs, but my feet, let me scoot back here. My feet are outside of my hips. Stay. My gimbal's fighting me. Okay. It's not going to want to work with me. So my feet are outside of my hips. So if I'm here, my feet are wide, and then I'm still maintaining that seated upright position. So my right and left foot are probably 6 or 8 inches outside of my hip joint, and I'm out at 45 degrees basically. So from that position, I still do the same exercise, and I'm going to have you guys do that. So let's do a set of 10 where your feet are outside of your hips, and you're really trying to fire up the core in that position. So your trunk becomes a bigger component of the stabilization when we go feet outside of your hips. So once you get done with 10, let's go ahead and pop up, and we're going to move to one more hip exercise that I like. And on the hips, let's see if I can adjust this. Stay. Okay. So on the hips, again, we're going to go back to our immovable object, and we're essentially doing a lateral lunge, but we're going to, again, allow the body to relax and decompress into a range of motion. We like to do these a lot with our TRXs, and if you have a TRX at home, I'll show you that version here in a second. But if I don't, which I'm assuming most of you do not, I'm going to take a wide stance way outside my hips, right? As wide as I possibly can. I'll do this facing you guys, and I'll do it facing away. So I've got my stability here, and I'm going to sink and stretch into my right knee, right hip. Now, I'll do this from the side. I know it's hard to tell, but this leg, my trail leg, is perfectly straight. My toe is pointed to the ceiling, and then I am all the way tucked on my right heel. So I'm in no way, shape, or form pushing into my right knee. So as I load to my right side, I am completely sitting down. I'm using the bar to help counterbalance again, but I'm on my right heel, and my left leg is straight. And then I'll just pop up, and I'll go the opposite direction. So if you guys are in space, let's go ahead and do 5 reps each side. This is a great exercise. This is one of my favorite hip mobility exercises because, keep going, I'm going to keep talking. It's one of my favorite hip mobility exercises because it allows 3 things. It allows you to go beyond a range of motion that you'd normally be able to do. Number 1, you positively have an impact on the high-end hip mobility. I'll be a little bit general swath here. Most guys that I show this exercise for the first time feel like they're going to pull their groin, which I get, right? But it's hugely important that we keep inner thighs mobile, especially if we're active and we're athletic. They're great stabilization muscles, so they generally get moved through further range of motion than they need to. And then the third piece is that it actually is really a proactive way to get stronger through that range of motion, because that range of motion is generally a weaker plane of movement. And so as it relates to that frontal plane, but you're moving laterally left to right, it's really important that we can mobilize those tiny little AB and AD ductors as we're going through our warm-up, let alone our training program. Our training program should incorporate those muscles, which all of our programs generally do, but we need to make sure that we can mobilize them. And that exercise, hands down, is one of the easier ones to learn and do anywhere. So on the TRX, it's the same thing. I like it because I can add the total range, meaning now I'm going to start to open up my shoulders and spine as well, so I can relax and I can get a really long range of motion basically from my fingertips all the way down to my butt as far as lengthening spine and shoulders, and then I'm also working left to right as it relates to opening up hips. So great exercise. Let's go back to the towel. Take those with you guys. You should be doing those things a couple times a week at home in general, even when the gym opens back up. It's a great exercise to do after your run, hell, before you run, anytime, really, as soon as you wake up in the morning. So on the back side, we're going to use our towel. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab it probably just outside of my shoulders. I'm going to go over my head, and I'm going to open up my shoulders, and then back to the top. So easy way to think about it. Get it over your head. You're going to go down with your left arm, right? So I've opened up the left shoulder, down with your right arm, opened up the right shoulder, and then go back the way you came. I'll do it again. Over your head, down with my left, down with my right. So my whole shoulder joints, both sides now, are externally rotated and open, and then I'm back to the top. And I would alternate which hand I lead with, and if I'm doing right, it's right, 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 right. So my right leads the way the whole time. This is actually a fatiguing exercise, but it does a really good job of, again, putting that shoulder joint, and just kind of bear with me for a second, but if I think about anything that I do in front of me, all right, so you're sitting at your desk, right? I'm protracted. So here's your natural position moving forward. Even when you're working out, if you have whatever is in front of you, right? So your tension is coming, or you're pushing against tension of some sort, whether it's the floor or a dumbbell or a straight bar. You know, the subtleties of the shoulder joint, I get a little bit protracted, and basically what that does is it internally rotates the head of the humerus, it overworks the anterior delt, and then the pec becomes more of a stabilizer than a mover, right? So now all of a sudden we have this position where everything that we're doing is pushing into that front part of your shoulder joint, right? So I'll get real anatomical here, just the front part of your shoulder. So as I'm in this position pushing forward, if I'm protracted and pushing on something, the energy is going right into that anterior delt. The anterior delt's pretty strong, but it can only last for so long. So if we're overdoing some pushing, we're not getting enough shoulder mobility, holy shit, that's gonna start to wear out. It's gonna start to really burn, bother you, be problematic. So we wanna work on the external rotation. And it's not enough to just say, well, I'm gonna keep a good neutral shoulder, right? So to combat it, we wanna get ourselves in a position where we are actually, this is a neutral shoulder, and I'm gonna externally rotate. So you can see the difference in shoulder position, right? So this is neutral, protracted, internal rotation, and then this is retracted, external rotation. So as soon as you external rotate, retract, you should start to feel an open and a stretch. Now, the tricky part is that we want to get into that position under tension. So that's why we're using the towel. So if I've got a little bit of tension there, then it allows those muscles to then start to relax and open. So that's the whole premise of that towel. So if I cannot get the towel over my head, the first thing that you want to do is work on being able to pull that towel through. And you notice it's in line with the back of my head, or the top of my head. That's really important that we can get into that position and then work on our shoulder mobility from there. So as it relates to you guys thinking about, man, my shoulders are crunchy and they're tired and they're sore, I get it. And part of it is, yes, we need to do mobilization, and yes, we need to work through these certain ranges of motion. But on the other side, remember, especially as it relates to the shoulders and the hips, those are multi-directional joints. So let me explain. The elbow is a hinge joint. The knee is a hinge joint, right? So very, very simple, straightforward range of motion mechanisms. Shoulders and hips are the same joints, ball and socket, but your hip is a little bit limited because that ball is into a socket, so it's a little bit more wrap on the head of your femur. So it's a limited range of motion, but you're still gonna get bigger ranges of motion than you would at the knee. The shoulder joint is literally a ball and socket, but it looks like that. There is no wrap, right? So it's not technically a ball and a socket. What happens is your rotator cuff, your biceps, your triceps, your rear delts, your traps, there's the musculature that holds that joint in place. So what we sacrifice in power, we gain in function. What we sacrifice in long-term stability, we gain in function. It is my 100% rationalization behind why we will not do kipping pull-ups in this place. And that's a whole nother video that I would love to do. But the shoulder joint itself is, you got to respect it, number one. And you got to realize, understanding that it's designed for mobility. It's not designed for power and explosivity. So if you're training it that way, specifically, it's really hard to do. Not that you can't do that with big muscle groups pushing and pulling. That's what it's designed to do. But as soon as you get that arm over your head and you're starting to yank through ranges of motion, or as soon as you start to overdo those mechanics, the shoulder will break down pretty goddamn quickly. And so I can get off on that tangent. Let me vary back. Keep me wrangled, guys. So the whole premise is the mobility part, right? So the slower, I don't want to say slow motion, but the more deliberate you can be with those ranges of motion, the more that you're going to gain, specifically as it relates to starting to open up the shoulder and just feel better throughout the day. We can get into the dynamic components of how to open up the shoulder, especially as it relates to pre-workout and bench pressing and dumbbell presses and push-ups and things like that. I am talking about the day-to-day grind where we are just trying to open some shit up, right? So I'm thinking about how slowly can I go through this range of motion? Can I get every little muscle fiber to fire through that range of motion? Or am I just kind of doing the range, right? So everything that we've done today specifically is slow, deliberate, methodical, and it's not a rush to get done. So hopefully you guys sensed that. And so I think that I'll leave it right there. So hopefully you guys took something from this today. What I will do, as soon as I'm done, I'm gonna go back and put this into a little bit of PDF form, and I'll just upload it. I'm pretty sure that I can share it on Facebook and add it to our YouTube page. But if you guys are interested, just shoot me a text, and once I have it in PDF, I'll text it back to you. So literally that was, I think, 6 mobility exercises. We had a towel, we used a doorway, so you don't need much to do it. But it's a good start to your day. And the other side is, I wanted to take a Friday where we did not work out, where we did take some downtime. I want you to head into the weekend clean, fresh, enjoy it with your family. I'm sure that Memorial Weekend should be relaxing and it should be fun. We will be off. We will announce the winner of our 4-day challenge at noon. I haven't done the math yet, but I got all your numbers. I'll let you know where everybody is. And Chaos Boxing is doing the live stream on Monday morning. There's only going to be one. That's Memorial Monday. And then we get back on track for next week. And then we will start to throw out information to you guys as we are getting our reboot plan June 1st back up and running. So that's where we are right now. Guys, thank you for joining in this morning. And hopefully you have a good start to your day and you have an awesome Friday, and carry on. Have a great weekend. Thank you.